Okay, we will call this agenda priorities meeting to order for July 21st. It's 2 p.m. And I'll call on Councillor Hystad to please do the land acknowledgement.
Thanks, Mayor Barkley. The town of Innisfail acknowledges that we are meeting on Treaty 7 territory, the ancestral and traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Kainai, Piikani, and Siksika, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and Stoney Nakoda First Nation. We acknowledge that this territory is home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3, with the historical Northwest Métis homeland. We acknowledge that many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who have lived in and cared for these lands for generations. We're grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. We make this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territory we reside on.
Okay, thank you. And we'll move into 2.1. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? No? Could I please have someone make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented, please?
Sure, I'll move that, Mayor
Okay.
Barkley.
Thank you, Councillor Maceras. All in favor? Right, carried. All right, and next up, I'd like to welcome our delegation today, Marianne King and Kevin Halwa from the National Police Federation. Welcome.
Thank you, Mary. It's a privilege to be here in Innisfail, and we thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedules to make some time for us. Most of you, I think I may have met, or some of you I've met before along the way, either at RMA or Alberta Munis or somewhere else along the path. But a little bit about myself. Currently a staff sergeant with the RCMP with just over 28 years of service. All of my service in Alberta, born and raised in Alberta. And currently live in Sylvan Lake, Alberta. When we moved to Sylvan Lake in 2004, my wife and my two children at the time, we had thought, well, this will be not a bad spot or a nice part of Alberta to make home for the next 3 or 4 years. And 20 years later, we're still here, and I tell you, there's not enough dynamite out there to make me move away from central Alberta. So there is that. I love the area, and if I wasn't in Sylvan Lake, Innisfail was the other place that I was very interested in moving to. So obviously, very deep roots and passionate about central Alberta, not just Alberta, but central Alberta specifically. So a little bit about the NPF. Next slide, please. A little bit about the NPF. The NPF, our mandate is fairly simple. And that's to advocate for our members so they can keep your community safe. Here in Alberta, that means representing approximately 3,100 members across 113 detachments, assisting more than 1.5 million Alberta residents, covering 99% of the geographic landscape in Alberta. Since certification in 2019, we've negotiated our first collective agreement, secured mental health supports, and pushed for modern equipment and staffing. Today, we're here to talk about Alberta's policing future and to listen to your questions. Next slide, please. Alberta RCMP services in Alberta are governed by the Provincial Policing Services Agreement between the province and the federal governments, and that agreement is currently effective until 2032. And here in Innisfail, the RCMP also operate under a Municipal Policing Services Agreement. Provincially, under the PPSA, the provincial and federal governments operate under a cost-sharing agreement, federal paying 30% of and the province paying the additional 70%, saving Albertans roughly $188 million annually. Under the RCMP contract policing, all Alberta communities receive a full suite of policing services, including specialized services such as emergency response teams, police dog teams, forensic units, search and rescue, and much more. The Alberta RCMP covers about 800 calls for service annually, serves 22 First Nations community and 300 municipalities. The Alberta RCMP also, as I mentioned, have some geographic issues that some of the larger municipalities don't, and that you can see all the blue area on the map there, that's all ours, and the rest is covered by small municipal or First Nations policing. It's clear to see just by looking at the map how much more challenges we have just by the base of geography. So a quick visual on that. as you can see above, the RCMP, and I'm talking provincial, under the provincial resources right now, cover about 659 square kilometers. And if you're, as a council, you're likely familiar with a term where we say cop to pop ratio. But if I can kind of twitch a little bit to, if I say cop to geographic area, the RCMP covers has a ratio of about 1 officer per 378 square kilometers, fairly big number. If you compare that to Edmonton or Calgary Police Services, who police about between 685 and 825 square kilometers, their ratio is much smaller, 1 officer to about 380 square meters. So shouting distance, when we're speaking with Edmonton, Calgary, to in some cases many, many, many miles in between in the RCMP world. That, of course, adds some challenges. Thanks. There are 3 pillars that work together here in relation to Alberta's public safety ecosystem. First, the Alberta RCMP. As the province's provincial police service, they operate under provincial and federal mandates, plus many municipal contracts. Second, is the municipal police services, like Edmonton and Calgary and Lethbridge and the others. They serve communities in Alberta and often partner with Alberta RCMP on cross-jurisdictional crime and joint task force. When I say joint task force, we're talking about the alerts of the world, ACERTs, in some aspect. We have members seconded to ACERT, as do some of the other large municipalities. Joint drug task force, those sort of things. And we work well with those other agencies. And lastly, other public safety personnel, like the sheriffs, municipal police officers, bylaw officers, they also contribute to keeping communities safe and secure through enforcing bylaws and upholding public order. Each of these pillars has a distinct role, and duplication of costs and money risks creating gaps. Next slide, please. Thank you. Let's the next Alberta next in the public safety. Let's talk about where things are today. On July the 2nd of this year, the Alberta government announced the creation of the Alberta Sheriff's Police Service, presented as a new provincial police service that would work alongside the RCMP. Government says that this new service will be built by reassigning existing sheriffs into policing roles. But I think we need to look at the facts. While government claims that there are 2,000 sheriffs, based on a recent FOIP response, there are actually only slightly over 1,000 funded positions, 1,068 to be exact. And of those positions, 15% are vacant, leaving just 904 uniformed sheriff personnel on duty today. The government proposes utilizing 650 sheriffs into the ASPS, leaving only 254 sheriff personnel to handle the rest of their original duties, like court security, prisoner transport, and traffic enforcement. Sergeant Mike Zaverli is in the room, and I'm sure he can tell you that when the sheriffs are unable to do this, I want to say the word simple things, but important things, like prisoner escorts from the detachment here in Innisfail to Remand or somewhere else where that prisoner needs to go, and they are unable to do that, well, it's Mike and his team that have to pick up the slack, which of course takes them away from their core policing duties, which is policing Innisfail in the area. That's an issue, and it's easy to see how tasking those sheriffs with additional police-like resource or police-like functions will further deplete their energy available to do those tasks that they were originally created for. There's additionally, this announcement from the government, there is no public plan, no costing, no clarity of how this would work without disrupting existing sheriff responsibilities, or how it would be more affordable or effective. The announcement also coincides with the launch of the Alberta Next Panel, which will ask Albertans about the priorities ahead of the 2026 referendum. One of the priorities includes replacing the Alberta RCMP with the new provincial police service and possibly launching a new municipal services in Airdrie, Fort McMurray, Red Deer, which the province claims they will fully fund. Not sure how that's going to happen. As you all know, there is but one taxpayer in the province of Alberta, and that's you and I, and the rest of us that pay taxes in the province of Alberta, and that's who foots the bill. And I guess everything is cheaper if somebody else pays. So how the math of that will work out eventually, who knows? But it does raise some questions. And we've been here before. Many of you may remember the Fair Deal Panel of 2020. That panel already asked Albertans if they supported a Alberta Provincial Police Service. The result of this, the idea then ranked 14 out of possible 15 priorities, narrowly beating out the priority of separation from Canada. So might give you an idea of who's selecting both those options. Yet, despite no public appetite, no costing, no strategic plan, the government is moving ahead anyway. Last year, the government created an independent agency, under Independent Police Service, and under it launched the Interdiction Patrol, composed of sheriffs at the Alberta-Montana border. Not sure what they're doing there yet. I have not seen any results other than, people complaining on the socials about, really important things like window tint and whatnot coming across the border. But there may be something going on there that I don't know about. In any event, now the government is referring to the IAPS as the Alberta Sheriff's Police Service, something they could have consulted with the public, the stakeholders, on when they started floating this idea last year, but sadly they did not. It's important. It's part of a troubling trend of no plan. The province keeps repurposing sheriffs to fill gaps, not following a clear public safety strategy. All this raises serious concerns. Transparencies. Albertans have not been told what this will cost, and that is despite two previous resolutions, similar resolutions, one passed by Alberta Communities and one passed by rural municipalities of Alberta, both basically saying the same thing, in that we're not interested in this plan going ahead until we know how much it's cost. And that answer has not yet been provided. And I will also say this, when it comes to municipalities, I'm not telling you anything that you don't know, typically with municipalities, the phrase is often used, municipalities count nickels as opposed to dollars. Every penny counts when it comes to a municipality's budget, and this is just one more of those things that may end up digging deep into your pockets. Duplication. The ASPS also risks duplicating service with the RCMP and local police agencies. Sustainability, the government last proposal came with a $550 million price tag from PricewaterhouseCoopers for one-time startup costs, plus ongoing higher additional operating costs. In short, there is no business case, no public support, no consultation, but sadly there is already action. Thank you. We already know that the costs of launching a new police service are astronomical, and that Alberta RCMP is equipped to provide the professional services that Albertans have counted on for decades, since 1932 to be exact. In 2021, government study pegged the startup at $372 million and $164 million extra per year in operating costs, totaling over $550 million, and that, of course, is pre-inflation. At 4% inflation, that's already about $650 million in 2025 dollars. Creating the Alberta Sheriff's Police Service or providing Alberta Sheriffs with additional responsibilities require major investment that will incur the risk of major unknown costs. If we look at just a few of those costs associated to upgrading 650 sheriffs, $30 million in salary upgrades to align with first-class constable averages, $5 million in training costs to meet provincial standards, $8 million in new gear, that's uniform and service pistols and the like, and $2 million for body-worn cameras. And this is all before new vehicles, IT, detachment space, and civilian oversight. With the RCMP, however, 30% of those costs are federal. With the ASPS, 100% of those costs would land on Albertan taxpayers and municipalities. What we've heard, 5 years of public opinion. We've been doing this for a while, and every year we conduct a survey with citizens of Alberta from across the province. And those survey results are very consistent. Over 75% of Albertans in Alberta, so over 75% of Albertans in RCMP served communities are satisfied with the Alberta RCMP. Over 80% want to keep the RCMP either outright or with improvements, and less than 11% want to see a new provincial police service established. When it comes to top priorities, people actually rise and care about are healthcare, cost of living, and fixing the justice system, not a new badge or design. Short version, the proposal isn't solving issues Albertans care about. Who governs the RCMP? Well, this is a really good conversation that often comes up, and it's often misunderstood. There are two contracts that gives provinces and municipalities real authority over RCMP policing. The Provincial Police Services Agreement, or PPSA, lets the province set the policing priorities, request extra members, and holds us to provincial standards. Not to mention the federal government contributes 30%, saving Albertans roughly $180 million annually to invest elsewhere. That is, if it's a super easy document to read, it's about 80 pages, and we're talking about Article 5 and Article 6 of that contract. Article 5 allows the provincial safety minister to set the size and makeup of the force. That is completely his discretion, or her discretion, whoever's in the chair. And the policing priorities fall under Article 6, which in essence sets the policing priorities to be decided by the public safety minister. Nobody else, not in Ottawa, not myself, not Marianne, and not Mike Zafirley. It is set by the provincial safety minister. The municipal police service agreement is very similar. It gives the powers to the towns and cities to set community policing goals and tailor it to their budgets. Under these agreements, the federal government contributes either 10% or 30% of the policing costs, depending on the municipality size. So, in essence, Alberta already steers the ship without having to pick up 100% of the bill. Some fact over fiction. The government narrative is the RCMP are slow, too few, too costly, but the facts, well, they just simply state otherwise. PPSA troop strength is up 14% since 2020, from 1,549 members to 1,772 members today. 911 calls, on average, are 21 minutes from call to arrival at scene. That's not answering the call, that's actually 1071, 911 in progress to 1023, I'm at the scene. And when we're talking about the huge land masses that we're dealing with across the province, that's actually not too bad. In the city, in the town of Innisfail, of course, with those sorts of calls within the municipality, much quicker, obviously. 911 calls themselves are answered, and these stats are all covered and documented. Over 80, I want to say it's about 86% of 911 calls are answered within 1 minute, and 97% of those 911 calls are answered within 2 minutes. So very quickly. So any assertion on anybody that, or suggestion that 911 calls are being unanswered is just clearly not true. RCMP first class constable pay sits mid-range among Alberta police services. There's often a suggestion that the RCMP are more expensive. In fact, is when salaries are taken into consideration, they're not at the top of the scale, they're not at the bottom of the scale, they're right in the meaty part of the curve in the middle, where they should be. They're competitive to other professional police agencies, and worth every dime, in my opinion. Recruiting. Well, recruiting is actually also booming. Over 20,500 applicants were received in 2024, with over 3,000 of those applicants from right here in Alberta. Data matters, and misrepresentation or misinformation doesn't help anyone make good decisions. And these are all things that have maybe been misinterpreted by the current government. So what can you do? Next slide, please. First, stay informed by various sources and what's happening and the potential impacts of those causes. I encourage you to ask the province for hard numbers before any decision, training seats, capital costs, or integration plan is determined. And tell them rural Alberta cannot afford fewer frontline police officers or higher taxes. Supporting existing cross-jurisdictional solutions at work, like enhanced 911, staffing, integrated crime units, and mental health triage would be a great start. And the NPF and the RCMP are ready to refine and improve our current model with you. This shift could leave your community with fewer frontline officers, especially in the rural and remote areas. So with all that said, I do want to thank you for making time for us today, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you very much. I'll just go around to see if anybody has any questions. Councillor Bates.
Ooh, never been asked straight up before. I don't think I do. I think we've engaged back, I think the first time I saw you was in Olds at the one of those info sessions. The frustration that I have is even our own Alberta municipalities doesn't seem to be heard. So, yeah, I do my best to inform people when I'm asked or when the subject comes up, but no, I don't think I have any questions.
Yeah, 100%. And the fact that municipalities, which should, I guess, be the most connected with the citizens of that community, are not being heard, it's you know, I'm going to use the word discouraging, but that's not near a strong enough word. It's you know, I think some might even use the word insulting, to be quite honest with you.
Our association is not being heard.
Yeah, you're not the first person that said that.
Yeah, and if I can add as well to that, it's absolutely not a association-specific problem. I know it's not a matter of whether the invites are being sent between us, RMA, and AB Munis. It's kind of a brick wall these days trying to get a invitation for dialogue through. So absolutely seen, heard, echoed.
Thank you. Councillor Maceros?
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. I just have a clarification question,
Sure.
and that's on the Alberta Next in Public Safety, and that was with the numbers with the sheriffs, and the idea is that they're going to be taking these positions away to put them into the new police service.
That's what they've suggested, for sure. Now, it hasn't happened yet, but that's been the suggestion made by the government, which, you know, first of all, the FOIP information would suggest that their numbers to begin with, that to draw from, are not anywhere close to what is being suggested.
Right.
About
And sorry, they
about
were
half.
saying they're saying 2,000, and the fact is 1,068
just over
around there.
1,000.
Yeah, okay. Okay, and then that's going to leave a huge gap, which is then going to fall on the RCMP.
100%.
Okay,
100%. Well, it's got to fall somewhere, and you know, in policing in Alberta, when there's a gap, it's the Mounties that get called, and they, you know, yeah, that's seems to be where the buck stops, for sure.
okay. Thank you very much for this information and for the list of questions, and it was a great presentation.
You're very welcome, Councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Dunham? Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Councillor Dunham?
Sorry, Mayor Barkley.
Sorry,
I have no questions. I just thank you very much for the presentation and the additional information. Greatly appreciate it.
okay, thank you. Councillor Wing?
Thank you, Mayor Barkley, and thank you to both of you for the great presentation. I do have a question for you, and that's actually referencing a comment that the Premier made last week in Red Deer. Can you give me an update, please, on the Grand Prairie Police Force? I was led to believe that they had made the transition to a municipal force.
Well, they've made I was just actually up there 2 weeks ago. They've made the decision to transition to a municipal police service. Last week, the Premier, if I understand correctly, suggested that Grand Prairie believes it's going to be cheaper. The fact is, that's not what the report said. Matter of fact, the report said it was going to be more expensive, but they decided to do it anyway. Originally, the plan suggested that the first year transition, they would have 48 new police officers, or police officers employed by the Grand Prairie Police Service. Of that 48, 24 were expected to be experienced police officers coming from other agencies. They expected a lot from the RCMP, and 24 newly minted police officers off the street. That didn't happen. At the end of that first year, I believe there was 6 or 7, far cry from 48. That plan was then adjusted to 24. Again, half and half, 12 experienced, 12 new ones. They did not meet that goal either. Currently, I believe there's around 40, maybe something like that. Not very many. Grand Prairie, under the RCMP, the Grand Prairie had, if my memory serves, I want to say 108 positions there. So they're a long way yet to go. Not to mention the specialists, you know, the forensic ident, the, you know, dog handlers, all that kind of good stuff, which you can't just hire one. I mean, they got to be trained somewhere, trained and gain experience. So it is going slow. The transition was originally expected. When they served notice to terminate the municipal contract, that date was for this coming up March of 2026. I highly expect they will be asking for a extension because, quite frankly, I don't see how they possibly going to be ready to take over by March of 2026. And we've seen similar transitions take much longer than intended. And Surrey is a great example. You know, I think Surrey's in year 7 of transition. It was supposed to take 4, so we're almost double the amount of time. My concern is that in Grand Prairie will be a transition that never ends as well. And I can also tell you from speaking from regular citizens in Grand Prairie, they're disappointed and upset that many of them are that the city is going down this road. The city of Grand Prairie, to their credit, did have an open house sort of thing, which may have been as they say, the best attended open house that they've ever had. However, best attended was still only approximately 90 people in a city of 70,000. So maybe still be best attended, but it's still a very, very small number of people, voicing support. Additionally, as you're aware, or probably aware, to this point, the provincial government has picked up the major tab in transitioning. Originally started with 7 million, or was it 9 million first? I think first one was 9. Yeah, first when it was first announced, the province gave $9 million to assist with the transition, and then recently another just over 7 million. I also suspect that the municipality has dug into their municipal reserves to keep the tax increase down. Who knows what will happen? But I do know that there's a municipal election coming up in the fall, and I suspect highly that it'll be a contested issue.
The other stat that I would just add in is I know last week the Premier was quoted as discussing Grand Prairie's actual strength, so the number of police officers in the community, being 50 police officers out of an authorized strength of I think 109, but it's never been 50. The strength in Grand Prairie has always been around 90 to 95 personnel. It's never sunken that low. And when we think about comparable vacancy rates, either that's with the Alberta Sheriffs or with the Alberta RCMP overall, we're still seeing a pretty strong common 15% vacancy rate. So that, was not the case at any point in time.
Yeah, and if I may speak to vacancy rates, it is no secret. Vacancy rates across not just the RCMP but policing in general is sometimes higher than we would like, and that's because it's a very difficult job. When I joined, in the late 70s, late 90s, not that old. Geez, I'd look great if I was joined in the 70s. When I joined the outfit in the late 90s, at that time there was applicants wrapped around the block several times for every police service looking to join. That's just not the case anymore. The RCMP, I think, partially because of the allure of the Red Surge, perhaps, the quality of the training, the quality of the outfit. The RCMP is probably doing better than most as far as applicants, wanting to apply, but that's just not the case in most cases. Additionally, when we compare, of course, there's just briefly, there's two types of vacancies. There's hard vacancies and there's soft vacancies. So hard vacancies are ones where there's a position there that's ready to be funded, but there's just nobody identified and there's nobody in that chair yet. That's a hard vacancy. Soft vacancies are such like, there's a vacancy there. Steve has been slated for it, but Steve's got to sell a house and move to Innisfail and to occupy that spot, or so and so is on mat leave or pat leave or whatever. It's short-term vacant. When you compare those soft vacancies of the RCMP to some of the major police services in Alberta, and I always use the EPS and CPS as a close one, their soft vacancy rates almost identical to ours. So the suggestion that vacancy rates in the RCMP are like, oh my goodness, they're so horrible. Well, maybe, but the question is, are they any different from anyone else? And the answer is no. Hard vacancy rates, obviously in some of those municipal outfits are a little bit easier to fill because there's nobody selling houses. If I'm getting transferred in Edmonton, I go from downtown to the South District or whatever. Well, I report on Thursday. I don't have to sell a house. I don't have to buy a house. I don't have to engage with a realtor. Whereas unless I'm coming from Red Deer, like Staff Sergeant Imy did from Red Deer to Innisfail, I'm quite likely I'm probably selling a house, and that takes some time.
Thank you. I don't know if we can do anything about it, but Councillor Dunham is having a bit of a difficult time hearing council. He can hear our delegation fine, but so adjustment, I guess. I heard an interview a couple of days ago from Grand Prairie, and they're at 37.
Yeah, just judging by the number of bodies I saw in the detachments, it's not big.
Okay, Councillor Heistad.
Thanks, Your Worship. So is Airdrie already in the go? Like, are they ready to transition?
I don't think
Like, when
so.
you mentioned Airdrie, I was kind of surprised. I've heard Grand Prairie,
Well-
Coaldale, those places. Just curious on that, as well as what do you guys plan on doing in the municipal elections? I'm kind of curious what your approach would be. And banging your head against the wall for 5 years that must be tiring for both of you.
Well,
So,
we'll try to take those in order. Sorry, what was the first question? I had it on top of my head.
it was about Airdrie.
Oh, Airdrie.
Airdrie.
That was a suggestion. That's been a suggestion made by the government. We have not heard that from Airdrie.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, speaking with Mayor and Councillor there, in social situations, I don't suspect there's a lot of appetite there. I think the government would maybe like them to consider it, but whether they actually are, I don't believe that to be true. As far as the municipal elections, we're a nonpartisan organization. Just here are the facts and you choose. It is what it is. And as far as banging our head against the wall, yeah, I guess it goes numb after a little while, so it's not so painful after year 3 and 4. But as long as the work needs to be done, we'll be there doing it.
Thanks.
On the Airdrie front as well, so I'm sure you're all aware of the Municipal and Indigenous Police Transition Study Grant. So Airdrie actually did their own police transition study, I think 3 or 4 years ago. They then took that grant, used it to update their study with costing, and their council got that report back, didn't action it. So they looked at the numbers again, updated for $2024, I think at the time. Their council had the moment to reassess, and still they chose to not proceed with it, just because the cost increase for the service levels. They ultimately concluded, I think, in their updated report that all the issues that were identified with policing were inherent with policing. Kind of like the same thing when it comes to vacancy rates. Policing is a difficult job. You're not going to change the nature of policing by changing the nature of the uniform. That's just unfortunately the realities that our members face, every time they go out. Sorry, what was your second question? I think I might have had something
No,
there,
it
Councillor.
was Airdrie, and then what were you going to do in the muni elections? And you guys said that you were nonpartisan.
Yes, so
Which-
while we aren't going to be coming out in any way, shape, or form about specific races, not having any kind of presence in that way, after the election, absolutely expect to hear from us. We do want to do outreach with new councillors, returning councillors, just doing a bit of a educational refresh on, hey, get to know your RCMP. I was very surprised to hear how many councillors haven't been on a ride-along. I'm sure that probably hasn't been a problem here because your detachment's fantastic, but that's a resource. Go on one. It's good.
I've done one.
That was an escort there too.
Yes,
Yeah, so question, of course, there's always reference to this 2032 exit.
Yes.
Can you comment on that, please?
I'll start by saying this. Every contract that's ever been in existence always has an end date. That does not mean that it doesn't get renegotiated. Previous federal public safety ministers have indicated to every single province by way of written letter that there's all intention to renegotiate the contract and renew the contract. And as a matter of fact, it's said that there's been money set aside for that negotiation process. So to suggest that or to put much faith in a certain white paper that was maybe dropped on the last day in office by the previous prime minister has much validity to it is, for lack of better words, ridiculous. Prime Minister Carney has since said, the RCMP is not going anywhere. Improvements, changes, but we're not getting out of contract policing. I also have it on fairly good authority that the provincial government has also received similar letters from the very high ranks of the RCMP saying we're not going anywhere. We're here to serve and police the province of, in this case, Alberta.
Oh, no, that's good. Thank you. So I did participate recently. There was a MNP, Government of Alberta session. It was supposed to be in person in Red Deer, but it got moved online just because of low attendance. I think it kind of unfortunately coincided with Alberta Municipalities Summer Caucus in Devon that day, but there was not a lot of people in that session, and was able to give some feedback. Of course, it's around the APPS, and we're MPSA, so I did ask right off the bat whether they wanted feedback from MPSA communities, and they did. So gave them some feedback. You know, certainly, I think I can speak on behalf of council for this. We're very happy with our detachment here in Innisfail, as I'm sure everybody is aware, and you know, our school resource officer and everything. It just, the Police and Safe Community Committee that's been going on for, well, since last term, and just the relationship, what Staff Sergeant Imey has done with town halls, and there's a public engagement last week with a community barbecue. So it was just interesting being, I think, in that session, and there was a lot of comparisons, really officer cost to officer cost, but the rest of it was not talked about really. And I guess, you know, from our perspective, I find that we pay 70% of the cost when you have rural municipalities that are the same size or larger paying 30% of the cost. And to me, that's not quite equitable, but it is what it is. But I think please know that we're fully supportive, and you know, if there's anything further that we can do to support you, let us know. And we're extremely happy. Feedback comment I got when I said that is, well, you're maybe one of the lucky municipalities that everything is working well. But I don't know whether that, if we're unique, I kind of doubt it. But we're very very pleased with how things are being run here, and the engagement from the RCMP with the community. And so.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And I echo all your comments about the Innisfail detachment. Staff Sergeant Imey and Mike Stafferly are running an excellent crew there, and just a great group of members there, without a doubt. And you are 100% correct. When we speak with you know, municipal leaders from other areas of the province, they all say very similar things. They love their members, they love their detachment, very happy with what the service they're getting. Can there be improvements? Sure. There can be improvements on almost anything, whether we're talking your cell phone plan or your police service. But that doesn't mean that we completely rip up a contract and start over.
Yeah, I think visiting Real-Time Operations Center last week, it was disappointing to hear that there hasn't been that connection between that center and the provincial government, that there doesn't seem to be willingness to come and check it out, other than I believe a couple of MLAs have come to visit. But unfortunately, that's it so far. But I mean, it's what an incredible service, and you're not just serving RCMP, you're serving other police services as well. So I certainly congratulate the RCMP on that center. It's very unique and obviously needed. So thank you so much for coming today. Does the administration have any questions? Anything? Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming today,
Thank you very
as
much.
always. And good to see you again.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
if there's anything further we can do, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Yes, for sure. I will leave some business cards here.
Yeah, for
If
sure.
council or anyone else would like to, needs to get a hold of me, I'm always available for a phone call, so. Let's leave this here.
Okay. Councillor Dunham, are you able to hear us better? Nope. Councillor Dunham?
It's very difficult to hear you folks. I was able to hear the delegation and their answers, and I was able to graze through that, what your questions were, but it's very difficult to hear anybody on council. right at this point in time. So
Okay, we'll try to speak up. Is that better, Councillor Dunham?
there, that's much better.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right, so speak up into the microphone, close.
Yeah, that's much better. I can
Okay.
hear you now.
Feel like I'm yelling, but okay.
To the mic.
All right. So we will move on to 4.1 on the Aquatic Center Communications Update with CEO Becker.
Thanks, Mayor Barkley. Council, as the report reads, last week, July 14th, Council made a motion to direct administration to coordinate 2 aquatic center modernization project public education sessions up to the budget amount of $5,000. This report is to circle back with you, just to have a conversation, inviting council's feedback, direction, and expectations regarding the public education sessions. Now that we have the director here to participate with that conversation, council may wish to use this opportunity to have further dialogue regarding the projects in light of some of the public feedback you received through social media. So just in light of that, inviting the director to participate, but just looking at some direction or expectations regarding those 2 sessions.
All right, thank you, CEO Becker. So, Director Jenkins, do you have anything to add yet, or do you want me to? Okay, I'll go to council then. So we'll begin at the other end, this time with Councillor Heistad. Do you have any comments or questions?
What were those dates again that we were proposing? Okay. So, and the only thing that I would say is, as to the communication itself, I know it's summertime, but I think it'd be beneficial for us to have a session in the summertime, even though attendance may be low. It's just a good way to make sure that we're communicating with the public, and as well as in the fall. And I honestly think that, let's see how these 2 go. If we need to have more, then I think that's a must, so that we're making sure that everybody is aware of what council was trying to do with this project and trying to do what's best for everybody. Thanks, Your Worship.
Right, thank you. So we're in the process of setting up 2 sessions,
Yes,
correct?
we don't have dates currently. We're working with the architect to prepare additional information, rendering drawings, and getting quotes for what it will cost for their time for participation in those sessions. So likely looking at the earliest, we would be probably the week of August the 18th for having one of those sessions in terms of getting the material back and prepared for a session.
Thanks, Your Worship, and thank you, Director Jenkins. I think August 18th, if we can get that going, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. And this is through to Director Jenkins as well. Just a question that was posed to me on the weekend. How many washrooms currently exist, before the changes? How many washrooms in each dressing room are there?
So currently there's 1 in the men's facility, and there are, I believe there's 5, but let me just.
Okay.
Hold on. I think it says it on this info sheet, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, just the concern that won't be as many washrooms, and it's like, no, I know that's not true
No,
for sure, and
there
I
will
have
be
no
more.
intention of going anywhere with it. I was just, for my own brain, it was like, how many actually currently exist, and what kind of a change are we looking at? Yeah, no, I would be happy with an August meeting as well as a September meeting or whatever. That would be good. Get some, have that feedback and that opportunity to chat with people, the sooner the better. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Councillor Dunham.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. Thank you, everyone. I guess we still are seeing a lot of talk out in the community, and I think one of the things that I've noticed the most is that people really have a difficult time visualizing a blueprint or a technical drawing. And for me, I feel that if we had a drawing showing the walls and how they needed to be moved, and that would give the rationale behind why we couldn't have the 3 spaces and we just had to move to the universal. I think if we were able to have something like that at the information sessions or even on the Involve Innisfail website, it might give people a better idea why we had to do what we had to do. As we all know, we've been trying to be very fiscally responsible with this project, which is why we just ended up doing the modernization. And the cost involved in having to either blow out a wall or, potentially lose the hot tub to accommodate having the 3 change rooms, I think is something that is important for our citizenry to know. And I'm not sure how other councillors feel or even with admin, but I would like to potentially explore looking at finding some money to be able to have the team have those drawings available, or at least a rough idea so we can show people why it was not possible. Because I have experience with blueprints and actually drafting, and it's still very difficult for people to visualize unless they're standing in it. And I think no matter what we do, there will be a small percentage that will never be on board with what we're trying to do. But I think there are a lot of people that if they had those visual pieces, i.e. the renderings that we're going to be putting a motion forward to, as well as the rationale and those are potentially going back, and I know it's going back in time, but showing what walls would have had to have been moved and potentially what we would have had to lose to accommodate the 3 change room option, which really wasn't an option, but you know what I mean, the 3 change room potential, and then the costs involved in that. As we're all very well aware, the lack of funding for smaller communities has left a vacuum in the municipalities, and it's created this situation. So, what happens with other smaller municipalities going forward and making the decision around building a new facility, modernizing what they have, or potentially not even having them. So that's my view on it. I think, what has been being put out on that Involve Innisfail website, and I did actually just receive here about an hour ago that some information had been updated, but I think that there's still pieces that we could produce to help the community see it in a different way. And, looking at, potentially putting some money aside, and even if it was in the $10,000 range, that's less than 0.1% of the entire project budget. So I'll leave that with the rest of council. If anybody else has an appetite for that, for us to potentially increase the money in the motion to include going back, or maybe we need to just direct administration to talk to our team and to see if that is even possible to come up with some drawings or an overlay to be able to show the community why it wasn't feasible to do it the other way.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dunham. We'll hang on to that comment for now, and we'll continue going around the table. Okay, so I'll go to Councillor Maceros next.
Thank you. So if the main question is, I agree with having 2 sessions. Yes, I agree with that. I'm wondering what thought has been put in so far in terms of what it's going to look like, and if that's maybe a discussion that is not relevant right now.
No, certainly. I think that's a big part of what we're asking council here today. I guess my understanding to date is that we're looking for some type of open house style event, likely at the LLC. We would have members of both the Chandos and the Group 2 architecture team available to answer questions. As I'd mentioned, we're moving forward with them preparing renderings to help with that visualization of what the space will look like, as well as some more sort of technical backup for questions on some of the why questions and how the facility will function.
Would we have like a question and answer offering for the people that come, or would we maybe consider asking people to submit questions prior to the event?
So we have, and included in the council package is sort of the FAQ we've had on the Involve page that we've been updating as we get questions either through emails or phone calls. We've been trying to put together sort of those consistent answers. So if there are questions that council's receiving that aren't reflected in the current FAQ, by all means, pass them out, but we would be looking to rely on some of this information we already have and beefing that up as well.
So not offering like a back and forth kind of question and answer.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
or at least my understanding to date is that this wouldn't be like a town hall type style of event, that it would be sort of groups of individuals or sort of working through a room.
Just to supplement, so there is engagement to answer questions in that setting. Just, it'll be like the Deep Sky.
Yeah, similar, or other open houses we have for land use, MDP, where there's multiple staff people or team members available, and that people are asking those questions, sort of one-on-one or small group to one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bates.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add. Even though I try to avoid it, I've looked quite a bit at Facebook in the last while, and I find it interesting, even some of the people that are defending the initiative are concentrating on trying to spell out that they're private change rooms. And I think that semantic does come into play a lot with some people, that, and even in our own written, I don't know, I had it on my computer here, what is a universal change room? I think we need to, as we put this together, make sure we concentrate on showing that it's the access to the private change rooms and private toilets and private showers. One of the things that I think would be useful is if we were to try to address the capacity, because I do hear some questioning of a big group coming and going. What is the capacity? And yeah, I think that does need some kind of addressing. I don't have a whole lot more. Thank you. I definitely agree with the information sessions.
Right, thank you. So, Director Jenkins, just so that this is on in the public, so I'd like you to explain like how we got to this decision, in the sense like, we weren't able to accommodate the 3 change rooms because of the space, unless I understand that we expanded the building. So can you give just kind of a high level of overview of, you were sitting around that design table and for months on end, and how you got there?
Sure. So I guess the first part is, the project started with a lot of the modernization focused on the mechanical, the technical. As we moved into the project, looking at the change rooms in their current state, one of the big things with the architect that they've identified is that that L-shaped configuration of the way the change rooms are right now created significant challenges to create 3 separate entrances into the lobby, 3 separate entrances into the pool deck, while still meeting these barrier-free requirements for facilities and access through that space. The current men's washroom does not meet those accessibility codes either. So even that, could we have just left it the way it is? Probably not. In terms of the building code. Some of the comments around the previous HCMA drawing that showed sort of the 3 also required losing some amenities or the reconfiguration of amenities on the pool deck as well. And even since that time, building code requirements with respect to barrier-free, some of the spacing have been increased even in that period of time. Yeah, I guess that's the big part, and that in order to accommodate, we would have been looking at losing amenity space, whether that's into the hot tub and steam room area, losing, and then you're removing additional walls if you're going into the office space, which again, it's not like there's abundance of of that space as well, or the lobby multipurpose room.
Yep, no, that's good, thank you. Then secondly, I wonder if you could speak to some of the concerns that have taken place in those change rooms around maybe some vandalism, some bullying, some other things that have gone on, and, potentially, I'm not going to say it's going to totally eliminate, but the universal change room, I would suggest that we feel that may mitigate some of that unwanted behavior that the staff are seeing there.
Yes, the layout of that public locker area provides a far greater opportunity for supervision and monitoring by both staff, as well as teachers or coaches when there's other user groups in the area, as any of the staff can walk through that area at any time, as well as that sort of passive supervision with the sight lines from both the lobby and the pool deck. Within the current facility, in the change rooms is where the vast majority of incidents of whether, theft, vandalism, bullying, fights, those types of things occur sort of behind closed doors, where that really isn't an option in that common space now. What else can I say there?
Okay, and then I guess just going back to Councillor Bates, I think, it's logistics, there have been some questions around that, and, school groups coming and going, and I think, it seems to me that is something that can be worked out, but if there is a big event, you don't need to answer that today, but I think it's, people are wondering how will that work if there's a swim meet and those kind of things, so that information may be useful, and even some around the, how we got to the point where there is one universal change room as opposed to 3, like maybe have that information. I know I got an update today on Involve Innisfail, and I haven't had a chance to look at it, but I'm just wondering if maybe put some of that information up as well, and so people really understand what, and even the time frame that the design team was in place and sitting around that table for several months. And
and certainly, I guess there's a few in there.
there was.
And again, even that, timeline is a factor in this process as well, in terms of that. There certainly wasn't really a public consultation component this spring. The timeline didn't really allow for that. We have been in an information and getting that out. And a lot of the constraints were fixed as we've talked here, going out and asking, and there's only so many options. On the sort of the traffic and the management of higher traffic times, one of the ads in the updated FAQ is on the sort of change room and shower front. So currently there's 4 change rooms in the women's and 2 in the men's. The ones in the men's have shower curtains on them because, again, with the vandalism, the partition doors don't last very long in that space. So going from 6 to now we have the 25 available spaces. And then staff already works to stagger. If you look at lesson sets, they look very confusing because some start at 3 and some start at 3:15 and all of that. We've even had some comments, well, there were, 80, 90 kids here at the year-end swims. Lots of the school classes go and have the grade 6 swim, and they all swim. And staff tells me they already go, but Mrs. So-and-so's class, you're gonna get out. And then 10 minutes later, Mrs., that they already work to do that with the capacity that we currently have. And if we have to look at, scheduling adjustments and how we put programs in at certain times, that's certainly something that our aquatic staff will be looking at as we move through the process.
Yeah, sure. And I think even going back, you talked about we didn't go back to the public, and you know, you're right, the reality is it was kind of mechanical, and it was take the hot tub out, put a new hot tub in. And I think when we started with HCMA, we did do the surveys on what do you want, and that became large, and that's why we got back to, okay, well, let's set a budget. At the time, we were hoping there'd be some other contributors that have not worked out. So, you know, it was kind of, let's work within what we have. And right now, I said to somebody the other day that, you know, all the risk really right now is on Innisfail, and we don't know about grants, whether we get 1, 2, 3 partial, we don't know. So I think you've, you know, done a good job with what we have so far. So let's go back to Councillor Dunham. And Councillor Dunham, you'd mentioned potentially spending some dollars to do some more drawings, et cetera. And I'm wondering, are you satisfied with going to the public participation sessions right now at the library, or would you like that to be a part of it?
I guess for now, the public sessions, I think, will help inform people quite a bit. But is it possible for us to at least find out a dollar value from the team as to potentially, if we still feel it's necessary down the road, what we would be looking at for cost on that?
Okay, why don't you make a motion then to direct administration? Is that okay? Can we do that today?
Do you want me to include the current? Sorry, just opening up here. Okay, so that's just for information. I propose that administration reaches out to our IDP team to find out potential costs involved in getting some technical drawings or schematics of what the 3 change room option would have looked like and how it would have been invasive into the other areas, and potential dollar values attached to that. And that would be dependent on how things go with the public sessions coming up.
So sorry, so just part of that again, that the last part is dependent upon the public session. So you want them to get the cost back, or wait till the public sessions are over?
Let's get them, please, if we could have them reach out to find
Okay.
out how much the dollar value would
Yep.
be, but we will not move on that until after the public sessions.
Okay. Yeah, within the existing footprint, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. Councillor Heistad?
Yeah, I agree with the motion, the motion itself, and the costing itself, as well as just listening to prior conversation with Director Jenkins. You know, when I look at this project and I look at Chandos and the additional cost to it, I do also, just sitting around thinking of the numbers and that, I do look at a responsibility on Chandos as well as the architects that I believe they were fully aware of the possible concerns that could come up as they've been designing this with you guys right from the get-go. So, you know, I would hope that they, you know, in their numbers that they were presenting to us, that would cover some of the change management pieces that we'd be dealing with, even with this project itself. Those are my comments, but I agree with Councillor Dunham.
I guess just to address that, you know, budget has been the primary on this project from day one, and we've been very clear with the contractors on that front. So definitely there isn't a lot of extra room or sort of these extra drawings, extra time. So it will be additional charged cost for the education sessions from the contractors to be coming out for that. Again, yes, we can get quotes for going back and potentially producing some additional visuals and bring that information back to council.
Okay, thank you. Do you have further?
Wouldn't that be under contingency though? Like any of those additional costs wouldn't be that contingency place for that?
Essentially, how that IPD works as well as to me, that would be owner risk, which is essentially our cost anyways. But again, we really scaled back that sort of any extras. When we went through the first IPD process with the new, there was talks of virtual tours and all of those things, and that definitely has been pulled out of the current scope and budget.
Thanks, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? No, so we have a motion for administration to bring back some information on costs. All in favor? Carried. Okay, thank you. So we'll move into correspondence and information. Is there anything anybody would like to go over in the correspondence? If not, I'll just have a motion that we accept the correspondence as information. Councillor Bates.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. All in favor? All right, carried. And we'll do a quick round table, and we'll start with Councillor Hystad today.
Thanks, Mayor Barclay. For next week, the meeting, I'll have to zoom in. I just wanted you guys to be aware of that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wing?
Thanks, Mayor Barclay. I don't have anything to report at this point in time. I'll have a report for next meeting.
All right, thank you. Councillor Dunham?
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I will be submitting my report on Thursday. I will be back in Victoria for Monday's meeting.
All right, thank you. Councillor Maceros?
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I don't have anything to report either. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bates?
Yeah, I think most of us were there. Just the enjoyment and the significance of the real-time operations center and the community barbecue. Those are both great functions.
Yeah, they definitely were. I don't have anything at this time either. Upcoming events? Let's have a motion to accept the upcoming events.
I'll make that
Councillor
motion,
Wing?
Mayor Barclay.
Thank you. Any changes? No? All in favor? No? Carried. Then we'll have a motion to go in camera, please. Councillor Maceros.
I'll move that we go in camera.
Great. All in favor? Great. Thank you.